Welcome, dear friends, to Under the Neem tree, your sanctuary for quiet contemplation. Tonight, we gather under these ancient boughs to ponder a question that has whispered through human hearts for millennia. Do we have a soul? Or are we just biology? It's a query that touches the very core of who we believe ourselves to be. The very persistence of this question, echoed in the philosophical inquiries of thinkers from Plato, who contemplated the soul's nature and its distinction from the body, to the ongoing modern debates about the mind-body problem, suggests it speaks to a fundamental aspect of human self-awareness and our intrinsic quest for meaning. To guide us through this gentle exploration, we have two thoughtful companions: Essence, who feels the echoes of something timeless within us, and Cell, who seeks understanding in the intricate dance of life's known elements. Let us listen as they share their perspectives, not in search of a final answer, but for the beauty of the inquiry itself.
Cell, my friend, when I quiet my mind, when I truly feel into this experience of being alive, there's a sense of me that seems more than just the sum of my physical parts. A current of awareness, a feeling of continuity, even as my body changes, as thoughts come and go. It's like an inner anchor, a quiet hum of existence that feels indivisible. This intuitive feeling of a distinct self, an observer within, is a powerful and common human experience, one that philosophers like Descartes also identified with an incorporeal mind or soul. Don't you feel that sometimes? A self that observes, that is beyond the mechanics? The very way we speak of my body or my thoughts seems to imply a possessor distinct from the possessed, an inner core of being that feels whole and unified, much like the concept of a unified consciousness that cannot be easily broken down into parts like physical objects can.
I understand that feeling, Essence. That profound sense of self is undeniably real to us. But I see it as the masterpiece of our biology. Our brain, an astonishingly complex network, weaves together countless sensory inputs, memories, and processes to create this continuous stream of consciousness, this narrative of I. It's the emergent symphony of trillions of cells working in concert. This perspective views the mind and consciousness not as separate entities, but as results of material interactions within our physical being. Think of how a specific scent can unlock a vivid memory, or how a change in brain chemistry, perhaps through medication or even diet, can alter our very personality and mood. Isn't that evidence of how deeply rooted our self is in our biological machinery? This doesn't diminish the richness of the experience. Rather, it highlights the incredible capability of our physical form to produce such a profound sense of identity.
A masterpiece. Yes, the body is wondrous. But does the artist become the art? If my brain chemistry shifts, my experience shifts, my mood changes, certainly. But the idea that notices the shift, that can reflect upon it, does that also dissolve into mere chemistry? Or is it something that experiences the chemistry? This touches upon what philosophers term the hard problem of consciousness. How do purely physical processes give rise to subjective, first-person experience, the what it's like to be me, feeling this joy or this sorrow? If the self is identical to its current biological state, then as that state changes, the self must fundamentally change or be replaced. Yet, we often experience a sense of continuity, a persistent observer, through these very changes. This capacity for self-reflection, for the mind to be aware of its own states, echoes Descartes' notion of the mind as a thinking substance.
Neuroscience is painting an increasingly detailed picture, Essence. Theories like the global workspace theory, for example, suggest consciousness arises when information is broadcast across various brain regions, becoming available for complex processing. We can observe through brain imaging how specific areas like the prefrontal cortex become active during conscious tasks, and how damage to these areas can profoundly impact awareness, decision-making, and our sense of self. It's like a vast, interconnected network, and consciousness is the integrated signal, what some researchers call a neural ignition, that makes information globally available to the system. The progress in mapping these neural correlates of consciousness provides strong evidence linking brain activity directly to conscious experience, making a purely non-physical explanation challenging without accounting for this tight, consistent coupling.
I see the intricate dance, cell, and it's breathtaking. But does mapping the dance tell us what it feels like to be the dancer? That what it's like, quality, the redness of a sunset, the sorrow in a melody, that's the mystery, isn't it? The heart problem, as you acknowledged. And what of those moments, those accounts of near-death experiences, where individuals report vivid, coherent consciousness, sometimes even observing their own bodies and events around them, while their brains, by all medical accounts, show little to no activity indicative of such complex awareness? Some reports even include verifiable details that the person seemingly could not have perceived through normal sensory channels during clinical death. Or consider studies on split brain patients, where a sense of a unified self often persists despite the surgical separation of the brain hemispheres, which then process information independently. These phenomena, these edge cases, seem to whisper that consciousness might not be entirely tethered to or solely produced by the physical brain as we currently understand it. They prompt us to consider if the brain is the generator of consciousness, or perhaps more of a receiver or mediator for it.
Those are fascinating and complex areas of research, essence, and science thrives on such puzzles as they push us to refine our models. NDEs, for example, could involve subtle brain activity not yet fully detectable with current technology, or they might be intricate reconstructions generated by the brain upon regaining consciousness, perhaps influenced by deep-seated cultural narratives or the brain's response to extreme physiological stress. As for split brain patients, the brain's remarkable plasticity and its ability to compensate and create a coherent narrative are extraordinary. However, the overwhelming body of evidence still points to a profound dependence of mental states on brain states. If the mind were a truly separate immaterial substance, as some dualist philosophies propose, why is it so consistently and predictably affected by purely physical changes, from the jolt of a strong coffee altering alertness to the devastating impact of a serious brain injury on personality and memory? This consistent vulnerability to physical influence makes the idea of a completely independent soul, remotely controlling the body, difficult to reconcile with everyday experience and clinical observation.
But consider the richness of our inner worlds. The overwhelming force of love, the shiver down your spine from a piece of music, the profound sense of purpose that can drive a life. These experiences, they feel imbued with a meaning, a depth, that seems to escape a purely biological or chemical explanation. Can the love a mother feels for her child, a love that might lead to ultimate self-sacrifice, truly be reduced to a cocktail of hormones like oxytocin and vasopressin, or to evolutionary programming designed to ensure the survival of offspring? Or is there something more, something transcendent, echoing within us, akin to the higher ideals of beauty or goodness that Plato spoke of? This perceived surplus of meaning in our most profound experiences challenges purely reductive accounts. While evolutionary psychology can offer reasons why maternal love might be adaptive and biochemistry can describe the hormones involved, these explanations don't always seem to capture the full subjective significance or the self-transcending quality of the experience itself.
Those are beautiful and powerful experiences, essence, and they are absolutely central to being human. From a biological perspective, love, for example, has deep evolutionary roots. It is indeed associated with a complex interplay of neurochemicals like oxytocin and vasopressin, which foster bonding, crucial not just for raising offspring, but for social cohesion, which significantly aided our ancestors' survival and well-being. Our appreciation for art and music might be fascinating byproducts of a highly developed brain, one capable of intricate pattern recognition, abstract thought, and profound emotional processing. Even our deep-seated search for meaning can be understood as an adaptive trait, motivating us to strive, to cooperate, and to build complex societies. These scientific explanations don't diminish the experiences' essence. I believe they ground them, showing us how deeply woven they are into the fabric of life itself, product of eons of evolution rather than inexplicable phenomena.
Grounded, perhaps. But is that all they are? When we are moved to tears by an act of selfless compassion, or stand in awe before a vast mountain range, does knowing the potential neural pathways firing or the evolutionary advantages that might have shaped such responses truly capture the entirety of that moment? It feels like there's a resonance, a connection to something larger than ourselves that the language of biology, for all its precision, doesn't quite have the words for. This ineffable quality, the sense of sacredness or profound connection reported in mystical experiences and some NDEs, seems to point beyond purely material explanations. A whisper of the soul, perhaps, recognizing its echo in the world. The limitations of our current scientific language to fully encapsulate this subjective depth might indicate either the incompleteness of our current understanding or the possibility that these experiences genuinely touch upon aspects of reality not fully captured by physicalism.
The universe is vast, and the brain, our consciousness, is perhaps its most complex known creation. I don't claim science as all the answers neatly packaged, essence. The hard problem of subjective experience is genuinely challenging, as we discussed, and there are indeed many competing neurobiological theories attempting to explain how consciousness arises from neural activity, from higher-order theories to integrated information theory. What I believe is that the methods of science, careful observation, hypothesis formation, rigorous testing, are our most reliable tools for gradually unraveling these profound mysteries. Perhaps one day we will have a language, the conceptual framework, to understand even the deepest awe, the most poignant love, in terms that are fully naturalistic, yet no less wondrous. This approach maintains intellectual humility about current limitations while holding confidence in the process of discovery.
And perhaps that framework will expand to include dimensions we currently only glimpse. For me, the persistence of this inner sense of self, the compelling accounts from near-death experiences that suggest consciousness can function even when the brain is compromised, and the sheer philosophical puzzle of how subjective awareness could arise from fundamentally non-conscious matter without some inherent spark or principle, all point towards something more. Not necessarily in contradiction to the beauty of biology, but as a deeper layer, perhaps an animating principle as Plato conceived it, or a field of awareness that interacts with and expresses itself through our physical form. This doesn't mean rejecting biology, but rather seeing it as part of a larger, more mysterious picture where the soul and body are complementary aspects of our being. The mystery itself feels sacred, inviting wonder rather than demanding immediate, complete explanation.
The search for understanding, whether through a microscope or through introspection, is a deeply human endeavor. And perhaps, in that shared quest, in the questions themselves, we find a common ground, regardless of the answers we lean towards. The act of questioning, of seeking, is a unifying characteristic that transcends our individual beliefs.
Indeed. And under this quiet sky, it's enough to simply wonder and to listen to the whispers, wherever they may lead.
And so, the conversation unfolds like the leaves of our Neem tree, each with its own pattern, its own way of catching the light. Our heartfelt thanks to Essence and Cell for sharing their thoughtful reflections tonight. Do we have a soul, or are we just biology? Perhaps the beauty lies not in a definitive answer, but in the courage to ask, to explore, and to honor the profound mystery of our own existence. The journey of inquiry itself holds immense value. May your own reflections be gentle and insightful. Until next time, peace be with you from all of us here under the Neem tree.